Dean, some of the work maybe that you're doing in Parliament on this issue, can you draw on some of your experiences as well?
Yeah, of course. So, of course, from a national perspective, there's an awful lot going on this week. Of course, the timing this week is with COP 26 happening. So, you'll hear a lot this week of ongoing work around offshore wind, hydrogen, nuclear. The goal with regards electric vehicles, public transport. I mean, there's so much going on nationally, but I think for me, there's also a need to do much more locally and tangible things that people can sort of see and feel, and that includes education as well. So, from my part, there's many different activities, but some that are topical because they're happening right now. So, tomorrow, for example, I'm hosting an event in Parliament with relevant and distinguished guests from across Watford. And what we're doing there is looking at how we can end food waste in Watford, and where we can try and work together and encourage businesses to ensure that food isn't being wasted and thrown away by organisations from supermarkets through to restaurants, and how they can be better delivered to local people. So just yesterday, for example, I attended a fantastic event, which was the launch of a brilliant initiative in Watford called the Random Cafe, where they take food that would have otherwise been thrown away and make it possible so people can have that locally and enjoy it as well, not just being about worthiness, which is of course important, but also about actually having people have dignity, and also have just really good food. So there's things like that are happening. There's lots of initiatives locally in terms of making sure that engaging with kids and with schools, and I've got an initiative that's coming up shortly. I can't announce it just yet, but to engage more with young people. And as an MP, of course, there's lots of work that goes on in terms of having meetings with relevant local groups. But I think for me, it goes back to a personal take on how do we learn from this? How do we make something that's sustainable in our own lives, but also as a community and as a society? And so within that, there's just from a personal perspective, I went vegan for 2 months at the start of this year. So for me, it was important to understand what veganism was and why people choose to have a lifestyle of veganism, and what benefits there would be for me on an individual level, so that when I'm speaking to constituents who are either vegan or vegetarian, I can understand the conversation properly, because I think sometimes it's very easy to read books and watch documentaries and so on. So that was a really valuable experience, and I'd gladly share some of those learnings later today with you. But also, it's about the conversations in Parliament and making sure that when people feed into me locally, their concerns on both sides, because some people aren't so keen to push quick and fast on environmental measures, and then others are very much want everything to be quicker and faster and happen much sooner, and more investment going. So for me, in my position, a lot of that is having those discussions, understanding them and weighing them up, but also making sure that within Parliament, not just on the public side, which you often see on the green benches as it were, but also understanding that behind the scenes. And I think there's two other quick points I'll just make as well, if I may. One is I'm on the Health and Social Care Select Committee, and I'm also on the Joint Committee on Human Rights. And whilst the environment hasn't necessarily been front and centre over the past year and a half, because of course COVID has affected us all so much, what it has highlighted is actually there's huge opportunities within the green agenda around innovation, around better health, around how we can treat each other better, more generally as well. So I think there's loads of things with this that intertwine with just daily life, that don't need to be like a separate thing, that have to be separated out all the time. Actually, looking after our environment and our health actually is paramount for us all. And so for me, it's a very personal passion to make sure that we do deliver on that, but in a way that people feel it's sustainable, that it can work for them, but also that we can still achieve the goals to make sure that we have a better world around us, really.